I just want to say real thanks to the delegation of European Union and to my friend Ambassador of European Union Rafael Dayer for organizing this event. Really, it's very important for us, for Ukraine, and to every ambassador who present here, for their support, their input to this event. We really want world to hear about what's going on in Ukraine, and I'm really thankful to European Union, to every country present here today, and actually who was with us in our meeting today for everything what they're doing. So thanks a lot, and really glad to see you all too.
My question is for His Excellency the Ambassador of Ukraine. First of all, thank you for inviting us for this PC. I'm Asla from the Malaysian National News Agency, Bernama. My first question is, could you tell us a bit about what the current situation is on the front line on the conflict and also the negotiation? How has it improved or moving forward with the US participating for negotiation with Russia?
Thank you very much. Well, it's a very important question. We look at the numbers every day, and we look at what's going on every day. It's front line is very important, and just recently, maybe you heard that we gained back 300 kilometers. Our forces gained back 300 kilometers. Every day we take the numbers. How many people was killed from each side. Unfortunately, this is the reality of this war. Every day more than 1,000 Russian troops killed in this war, and maybe you heard already that last 2 months, actually, the numbers of mobilized persons by Russia actually less than the number of killed ones at the front line. So Russian forces are getting problems more and more at the front line. Our troops doing everything possible to push forward and to withstand all these forces from Russian forces. And I think we're doing a pretty good job. We still need big help there. Unfortunately, there is a big need in some additional weaponry, in some systems. Lately Ukraine produces lots of ammunition, lots of drones by itself. We increase our military production in big numbers, more than 10 times, and basically more than 60% of our needs we covering from what we produce on the ground in Ukraine. Basically, unfortunately, Russia, because they cannot push too much on the front line, full-scale aggression is going for 4 years, as we said, before. But in those 4 years, Russia could move only for 1% of the territory, Ukrainian territory. In these 4 years, Russia lost 1.3 million people. By some calculations, it's more than 8 people per 1 square meter. It's huge numbers. They just sending people in this fireball, just to burn them there. Unfortunately, we are ready to stop this madness at any time. Ukraine is prepared for negotiations. Our president is talking about that every day. That we don't need this war. We didn't start this war. We really want to stop this war, and Ukraine more than anyone wants to stop this war. But this war should be stopped not just on giving up the land and everything and Ukrainian resources or giving up people. Russia has to take responsibility for what they done, and there should be accountability for their deeds, and there should be some justice for everything what has been done. So we are ready for negotiations. The last round of negotiations took place in Geneva just recently. It was as far as I know, the teams what we hear from our government, from our sources, the teams came to lots of points, agreed to lots of points. Unfortunately, the issue of land on territory of Donbass, which has been put by a Russian side, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable by our president or our team. It's not acceptable by our people. People of Ukraine will never give up to those 10% of the territory, not just because we need these territories. This war not about the territory. This war about justice, about international law. This war about some things. We know what Russia is, and we know for sure, that in 4 years they took only 1% of territory. They lost 1.3 million people in those 4 years. But now they just want to so easily just take another 10% for nothing. They will need another 10 million people in another 40 years to get those 10% of the territory. And we know the Russia, they will take this land not only, for granted. They will take this land and they will use it as another platform for taking another pieces of land. Tomorrow they will ask, as soon as they will obtain Donetsk, they will ask for Nikolaev region, they will ask for Zaporozhye region, they will ask for Odessa, and so on. They already wrote in their constitution that they want to get those regions, and they already proclaimed them by Russian territory. Do you think they will stop? No, they will not. They will definitely not stop. They will continue, and this is only another jumping point to go ahead. And we asking not just to simply stop the war for 1 or 2 or 3 days or maybe half a year. We saying that we have to stop this war, and this war has to stop completely. It's no one should start the war or take this period for reload the gun, and start shooting again. This war has to stop completely. The international law has prevailed, has to prevail, and the international law has to be established around on the territory of Ukraine and the other territories. So we are ready for negotiations, but those negotiations have to be not only in push Ukrainian side to give everything up. The Russian has to give up some things as well. And as we're saying, okay, those territory. Okay, let's just spread the lines. You will take your forces 50 kilometers away from to one side of the front line, we will take our forces to another 50 kilometers from this front line, and we can bring there the multilateral forces. I'm not sure, maybe UN peacekeeping mission, maybe American peacekeeping mission, maybe some European peacekeeping mission, which will be in the middle, but this land cannot be used as another trampoline to jump into Ukraine and to get another territory in Ukraine. So this is our position, and we will stay with that. And I'm sure that on a referendum, this is not simple. President of Ukraine just cannot sign decree. Okay, I want to give this piece of land to Russia, this piece of land to someone else, and just give those. This is the land of the people of Ukraine. It's you cannot give parts of your land to no one can give parts of your land in Malaysia to anyone else. You don't want to pass it anywhere. I don't want to mention any countries or anything like that, but you get the idea, And basically, this is only for Ukrainian people to decide.
And the Ukrainian people agree with it.
And Ukrainian people will never agree with it. The president is asking to have a referendum. And only on referendum, Ukrainian people can say we want to give this land to Russia, or we don't want to give this land. And I'm more than sure, and we have previous polls that more than 70% of Ukrainian people saying we would never agree, because we already lost thousands of lives, 10,000s of lives for this land, what we were fighting for, to just peacefully give it back to Russia. For what? What they want from us? They want land. In 21st century, really, someone wants to get land and natural resources. This is stupidity, and we understand that this is existential war. This is the war for where we really see the genocide of Ukrainian nation. He doesn't need the land. He just wants the genocide of Ukrainian nation to wipe it out completely off the face of the earth. That's it. This is what they did 100 years ago, and we know this history. We know the history when they came the Soviet Union and they took our land, and in a few years we had the famine in Ukraine from 32-33, where we lost 10 million people in 2 years only, because they made artificial starvation on our land. They made those starvations another 3 times. They took our elite and all killed, in Gulag, in Siberia, or just shot besides in the forest, So we know what Russia is, we know what they're doing, we know what is Russian Empire is, and how it will deal with us, So the only choice we have to stand. We have to take our weapons, or if we don't have weapons, we will take everything what we will have in our hands and fight for that, because this is the only choice we have.
Okay, who's next?
I'll probably ask a question. I'm Norman here from Nikkei. This morning, Financial Times published an interview with President Zelensky. So President Zelensky is calling out to the EU to expedite the time of protecting Ukraine as part of the EU by trying to push it as early as 2027. How has it been at the moment in terms of Ukraine in joining the EU?
I want just reiterate the request of the President of Ukraine to get to to EU as soon as possible. I'm not sure. I will ask. I reiterated to Ambassador of EU here, to reiterate it further.
Yeah.
So, but really, we expect in the European Union to be members of European Union as soon as possible, and we are really thankful to everything what European Union is doing for Ukraine, for the tremendous support of Ukraine. But we know that being the part of European Union, we will do much more for European Union itself, for the countries of European Union. And the peace will be much closer in Europe if Ukraine will be a member of European Union. So further on, it's up to European Union.
I assume you might want me to compliment.
Just tell us exact dates.
Selamat pagi, Ramadan Kareem, everyone. It's not for me to comment, these wishes expressed and reactions that we've heard also at the level of the heads of states and government, both in terms of the EU institutions, but also the EU member states on this issue. But I'd like to stress maybe on the more technical side, two things. First, that joining the EU is not just a political will. There's a lot of things attached to this. Basically, just give you one insight without making a lecture about acquis communautaire, as we call it. You become part of the single market. To become part of the single market, you need to adhere to all standards, phytosanitary standards, security standards, everything in terms of regulations. So everything needs to be in place for this to work. If you would basically say you're part of the family, then that's not joining the EU. Joining the EU, there's no half joining the EU. There's only a full joining the EU, which, as we have seen in the past negotiations, takes a lot of time. We have significantly accelerated this in the case of Ukraine because there's a mutual wish to be as quick as possible. But it remains something that is far more than just a political statement. I think the political statement that Ukraine is part of the European family is already out there. So, and I think that's the most important element. Now, in terms of its impact and why is this wanted, because it is seen by Ukraine, and that's also not for me to explain, but certainly also as the security guarantee that it seeks, rightly so. Because if I look at the current negotiations and attempts to work towards a peace deal, I would like to stress a few things. First, that there's no one who wants that peace more than Ukraine, as you have just heard, than us. Any efforts deployed at the moment are not to prolong the conflict, they're there to shorten it. And there's only one side who can stop it. Is that to stop aggression from one day to the other. It's as simple as that. It's not that there is two-sided aggression. It's rockets flying one way, yeah? And then the defense against that. And if you just compare those two, at the moment I see blatant asymmetry between one side that says in words and in what it does and how it talks when it comes to negotiations that it wants peace and does everything to achieve that goal and goes much further than anyone might have been willing to go in terms of compromise a few years ago. And on the other side, Russia and Putin will just continue that aggression, as we have heard earlier from the ambassador, not of a military kind, only far more than that systematically targets civilian infrastructure and increases the plight of the civilian population. And I think Krzysztof had highlighted that last year was the
30% higher than the year before.
It's the highest death toll in terms of civilians. So it's not a military conflict that they're seeking. So this has to be seen then that there can be no peace arrangement without Ukraine. And Ukraine saying this is what they want, and it can not be it can only be a peace arrangement that is credible and sustainable if it is basically underpinned by credible security guarantees. So that's why we regularly say just and durable, because hasted, asymmetric peace would only prolong conflict and lead to the conflict erupting again. So what they seek is security guarantees from all partners. And as part of this, there's been many suggestions made from security forces on the ground. Again, that's not for me to say, but the long-standing request from Ukraine to apply for EU membership and to apply for NATO membership was referred to earlier this morning. It is every country's right, in light of its history, to choose where it wants to seek partnerships and allegiances. And I'll jump briefly, if I may, to one of my bosses, the High Representative Kuala, who was here when she spoke with Prime Minister Anwar. She was confronted at one point by another interlocutor with the statement that Putin says that he feels aggressed by NATO and the EU because they kind of, enlarge and widen, come closer to Russia. And she said a few things. She said, look, High Representative Kuala, come from a country that is smaller in terms of population than Kuala Lumpur. We are a small country on the playground of nations. We seek peace and we don't want to be bullied. And on that playground, there has been a bully that has made us suffer in history, and that is Russia in their case. And from this personal experience, she said, I have spent 3 decades of my political life trying to secure peace, and for us that meant becoming part of the NATO family, becoming part of the EU family. And when I hear that it's been the EU or NATO that wanted to incorporate us, she said, that's absolutely ridiculous. The contrary is the case. We wanted to go in. And what I tell you, she said, is that for 3 decades we were told you're not allowed to come in. It's been us knocking on the door. It's been us as countries wanting to go in. So it's a complete misportraying of the issue to say that there has been a will to widen in terms of getting closer to Russia or aggress Russia. Quite on the contrary, both constructs, even if it's a military alliance, NATO is entirely defense alliance. Nothing else. It's a defense alliance, full stop. And there's been also talks for over a decade to actually have Russia join NATO and become a NATO member.
Yes.
Those who know that. Yeah. So there's been no intention of, so that's a kind of a misportraying the issue to feed the narrative of that there is a reason for this war. There cannot be any reason for such a war, for such an aggression. There can never be any reason or justification for invading another country and violating its territorial integrity and sovereignty. So in that case, it brings me back to your initial question. The membership and accelerating the same is part of all our joint efforts to create stability and to incorporate Ukraine in structures that ensure that it's protected against any aggressor, hopefully on the long run without any aggressor present. Because what we have tried to do in Europe and with the European Union is, from a history of belligerence and wars that finds little comparison in the world over centuries, we've learned that lesson and said we do not want this to happen again. We want to bind ourselves together in order to preserve peace and prosperity on the continent. And it is not perfect in the sense that that it means rules, it means administration, it means a lot of paperwork. But the good thing is that we now fight over track changes and not over land. And that's a significant difference to the same continent over 100 years ago. And this is what we want to contribute to, not by imposing that, but by listening to those within the vicinity, geographical vicinity, because it's the European Union who wants to join, and then there's conditions and a process that we follow in order to do so. But it's also very well reflected in the partnership that we, I think, genuinely seek with countries like Malaysia and others in the region, many of those who are present here today, who actually feel very much the same as we do, because we are these middle powers or even small countries that need these rules to preserve peace and to survive. And in that sense, we try to strengthen exactly those partnerships, and that's what pretty much defines our common work here as ambassadors. The ones you see here is to seeing each other eye to eye, saying what can we do to strengthen each other, to work together so that you, in this case Malaysia, becomes stronger, sovereign, more independent, and it is independent, formally, of course, but as we have witnessed that we were overly dependent in terms of energy on one country, in terms of rare earths on another, and that we realized that this is never good. I hear that some interlocutors here feel the same about exaggerated exposure in one way or another to certain partners, including us. So in that sense, we want to build the same kind of partnerships that we've been trying to build within the European Union. It's been a very long answer, but it allowed me to kind of pass a few messages that I didn't want to miss out on. I think this is the occasion to speak to Hinadi and the colleagues present here. I'll try to step back, ask questions to others. I just wanted to make one point that to me is very dear, and maybe you want to go a bit further into detail. The comparison is often made between this conflict and others. And I don't think solidarity and clarity principle stance in one case excludes you doing the same elsewhere. So I like when you highlighted it with your question this morning again to stress that it is not only about Ukraine that we have, and we're defending the same kind of principles elsewhere. And it's also not about religion. We had that conversation, the Grand Mufti of Kiev was in Malaysia actually last year, and I visited the Islamic University here and had the Dean speak to me about the conversation he had with the Mufti, and how the Mufti had shared the plight of the sizable Muslim minority population in Ukraine and how they have suffered from Russian invasion. Let alone the Crimean Tatars.
Muslim minority. Yes.
The Crimean Tatars and so for me it was an eye-opener. I had not realized that, because for me it was a religious to hear this and to realize, oh, there's even this component involved. That was for me the perfect example to kind of do what we do. And I'm very grateful for our Malaysian interlocutors here, because we've moved to a tone of conversation where we look at these things together and sit down on each of these issues and say, what can we do together to address them and to do what we jointly want to do, be it the two-state solution, be it another crisis, or supporting the role that Malaysia had as ASEAN chair in trying to appease the conflict in Myanmar, which it continues to do now even without holding the chair. So to offer our support without substituting the central role that countries in the region play. In other areas of this world, because it's our neighborhood, Gaza is, for example, it's closer to Europe and our home than it is to here, and that's why it's also very close to our hearts. So it's if you sit down and you share these thoughts, it usually leads you to the positive agenda of working on the results together. Apologies for being long. Thank you.
I'm Javed from Pakistan 92 News. My question to Your Excellency. We have often seen that international double standards on global conflicts. How this coalition and this unity can face these kind of challenges and for the sovereignty and the peace and freedom of Ukraine, and to stop Russia for aggression How do you see this? How you can?
I think the principles are the same all over the world, and of course we have heard on many occasions kind of accusations about the West applying double standards, which is of course not true, and I think it's quite sufficient to look at figures, and I can say for Poland that after the outbreak of the full-scale war in Ukraine, our assistance to Palestine increased, not decreased. So I think that we have to be very sensitive about false information, which is being circulated globally by most of all Russia. It's a country which is really master in convincing others that its true nature is very different than it genuinely is. So I would appeal to you journalists and your colleagues in other countries in the region to be more sensitive to this kind of misinformation.
Thank you.
Your Excellency, just to add to the European Union ambassador, so recently there was a rejection on the 20th sanction package of the sanction towards Russia and a loan towards Ukraine by the European Union, because it was blocked by Hungary, who didn't agree with the loan being given out. So, to Norman's question is before that, Ukraine is looking to become a member of the European Union. Would that change if, let's say, Ukraine becomes a part of the European Union? Would they still need a voting to have a loan for Ukraine, or can other European member states block this, veto this, if they do not agree to give out this loan to help the war efforts for Ukraine?
My short answer to this is that we have had vetoes in the past 4 years, and we have overcome these. And we will overcome this veto. It's absolutely normal that in an organization that bases a lot of its decisions on the principle of unanimity, that you encounter points where one or the other partner disagrees. So in this case, it's been one. In other cases, it will be another one. And that leads us to another round of negotiations internally, and then to coming to consensus ultimately. And we've, I think, improved our way of doing so. And globally speaking, our stance on international policy issues has rarely been as united as on Ukraine in the past 4 years. So yes, it's not that every step is being immediately adopted by everyone, but the fact that we're talking about a 20th sanctions package speaks for itself.
But does it change the consensus in terms of if Ukraine is a member of the EU?
Well,
how it's delegated?
That brings us to the lecture on EU law, and without diving into details, also some of the decisions taken internally, particularly on budget issues, for example, and budget support are also taken on the basis of unanimity. Because we do talk about intracontinental and cross-country solidarity that involves moving huge sums of money from more wealthy part of the continent to those countries that still yet have to develop their economies out of one simple principle and lesson that we've learned is that when your neighbors become more prosperous and when you have a single market and the trade is so intense, your economies will benefit from that as well. So if you look at the past and you see countries like Ireland or Portugal, which were among the poorest in the periphery outside of the European Union, who are now among the most thriving countries in the world. Krzysztof, Poland, where it was 25 years ago, it's now the economic and I would add military and otherwise political powerhouse of the EU. It's the one that grows quickest among the big member states, and it's absolutely a dominant kind of, this is now the driving force. It's not the old big economies that have reached another saturation level, etc. So this is the belief that kind of brought us together, and since it it involves moving billions from one region or country to another, it has been always based on unanimity, because else you lose countries in the process. They would say, no, I want to have a say when my money moves from A to B, so it will not change in that sense. I'm not sure if there is a more in terms of solidarity possible than we already have now with Ukraine. That's what I said initially when Norman asked his question. I think we are there already in this full solidarity. Yes, when question come up where one country says, I don't agree with this approach or not, we talk again and we find a solution, but still the solidarity has been absolutely immense. And independently from what level of institutional integration which we have reached, the only thing that is clear is that we have accelerated that with an amount of political energy and effort that we have never seen before.
And it's basically, if I may, another point, I just want to draw your attention, that Russia is really losing, and they're trying to use everything possible to undermine the European Union through its members from inside, and using Orban, some other forces, and some other people to undermine the support for Ukraine, So we understand that, and because in this case, particularly, with the pipeline, it's not Ukraine who broke that pipeline, Russia precisely bombed this pipeline, completely broke this pipeline. Our forces are trying to repair these parts of pipeline, they go in there trying to repair. Russia bombing because they supervise this, but they're trying to bomb it and we cannot repair it, and the oil cannot go through. So they just use Orban, Fico, and some other people, to do it from inside. So I think European Union, as we said, they're doing its best and really. Doing a good job on that, so we hope everything will be resolved in good way.
Mr. Thomas Andrian, maybe you will ask some questions.
Yes, I have. Okay, this question is open to all ambassadors. I'm Thomas from Malaysian News Channel. What can be done to end the war zone? There are reports that shows that Russia is suffering from their military point. They have lost 1.3 million, not lost, there are 1.3 million casualties and almost 200 to 300 soldiers killed. Their economy is crippling, there's already inflation. There are also reports from military intelligence. One way to end the war is to get more support from the Europeans and strengthen the embargoes or the sanctions against Russia. Don't buy anything from Russia and don't sell anything to Russia. Let Russia economy cripple and let the people go against Putin. This is based on military intelligence. So perhaps, what is your opinion to end the war zone?
Shall I start?
Please.
And then you add maybe something. When the war started, we had these talks, with people, how long it will take, and how much casualties does Russia need, to stop the war, when it will be the turning point, and we thought, they will have 1,000, casualties and they will stop, and they will retreat, it will be more than enough, for any normal country, it will be more than enough to lose 100,000 people, your own people, to retreat, to stop this madness. Today we at the fourth year of war. Unfortunately, they lost already 1.3 million. They have 1.3 million casualties, and I'm not sure how many they have, like wounded and disabled person, but they don't stop. The economy, as you said, the economy is crippled. We have 20 spec of sanctions already in place. We can see it is at the point where it's fighting really hard. It is tight as well. But I'm more than sure that it is not enough. We have to put more pressure, more economic pressure. We have to completely stop some energy supplies. What we have from Russia. At least this is what we're trying to do. And thanks to European Union and other countries who are imposing those sanctions. But I think we need more sanctions. Definitely our forces need more power, more weapons to withstand this aggression. Because last year we received only very, very small part. I don't want to tell the numbers, but very, very small part from what we used to receive from other countries, in military, in ammunition, and stuff like that. But we need this support in any case, because we protecting ourselves. We fighting. We in defensive side. We have to protect ourselves, and we need those weapons not only to go forward, but we need at least to protect our cities, protect our citizens in cities like Kiev, like Kharkov, like Dnipro, like Kherson, to protect the sky, to protect civilians from those bombs and shells, what we have every single night, So definitely we need more pressure. Not only Ukraine has to give up to everything what we have. Russia has to be responsible for what they're doing, and for the pressure has to put bigger pressure on Russia. So this is my opinion. My colleagues will add something more, maybe.
Yeah, okay, if I can jump in, thank you. So, as we sit here, also we are members of the European Union and also allies of NATO. And I think, NATO and the European Union have been very careful in not being drawn into the war in the sense of being a war party, because that's precisely the point. We are not part of this war. We are not an aggressive actor in this. But what we will do with all our aid is to support those who are defending themselves and their own sovereignty. So this is why you see us very active, and the European Union, together with its member states, has coughed up since 2022 200 billion euros in support for Ukraine. So by now the Europeans are shouldering the major burden of this war, and I think this is the right way to go. It makes a very clear distinction of not getting involved directly, but it's of helping Ukraine to defend itself, to which it has the right to do. So I think we will all need a lot of endurance. It's a very costly business for all of us. We have reoriented our economies big time. Germany has gotten rid of its dependence on oil and gas from one country. So we've really revamped our own economies. It's been very costly, but we're convinced this is the right thing to do. And as always in life, change brings opportunities as well, and we become different countries through that. And it's an opportunity also to really think about what we should be all standing for. And I have to say, looking at today's event, kindly co-organized by Ukraine and the European Union delegation, I was very heartened to see the level of support in the room. We see the numbers rising, even here in Malaysia, and we're really thankful for all of you who came for this very important show of solidarity. Because if you boil it down, and if you transcend, the narratives which we are all flooded with, if you drill deep down, it's about humanity, right? And it's about right and not right. And this is a case where it's particularly clear, I find, because one side is, as the ambassador of the EU said, is throwing the stones in this case, and the other one is shielding. So I felt today I was heartened to see the level of support which has been manifested, and I hope that, and I really also thank the Malaysians who were in the room today and who were very strong in that sense as well, and I hope we can continue on this path as well together. And as I say, it transcends. We will also speak up for other injustice.
Do you think that changing regime will affect, will be helpful to stop it?
I don't know to what extent it is reasonable to think that it is likely in the time to come.
So, Your Excellency means the only one person, actually, the stubborn person is aggressing.
I think this is the problem of many of us, that many of our partners, including in Asia, failed to grasp the true nature of the regime in Russia. They sometimes are successfully convinced that it's a peaceful country which is defending itself against aggressors, which is not true, as Ambassador of the EU has just said. It's a battle of narratives from one and from the other side.
Two additions. In 1994, I think, in the Budapest Memorandum, Ukraine has basically handed over its nuclear arsenal to the Soviet Union in return for territorial integrity guarantees and sovereignty guarantees. So that's the very same country that says, I guarantee you your territorial integrity and sovereignty. And then you look at the map today, I don't need any other example of saying which way the aggression goes. Secondly, to get back to the core of your question, I think that's the reasoning behind the sanctions. And we are mindful of the difficulty of sanctions. We have adopted them. They have had a strong effect, as you rightly pointed out. We don't impose extraterritorial sanctions. So we do not impose these sanctions on everyone else in the world. So it's true that anyone else in the world who continues to buy Russian gas and oil feeds a war machine. And this everyone has to clearly understand now. It's a country that devotes 40% of its budget now to military expenditure. So if you deal with Russia business, you fuel the war machine and you're responsible for the killing in Ukraine. There's no other way of putting it for me. It's not like, it's just business. No. It is 40% of the money that you pay for Russian goods ends up killing, number one. Number two, any kind of technology or so that could be used and sold to Russia to fuel the war machine is a problem. And in that sense, what we've done is to try to engage with partners, because we do not impose this, and to explain. We've also engaged in an intensive outreach with our companies, working all over the world, producing goods that can be relevant on the battlefield, because we do not think it's homework that others have to do, it's homework that we all have to do, including us. So we've basically told our companies, know your customer and where your goods go, in particular dual-use goods. So all these efforts go into that direction, to peacefully reduce the resources available to prolong this war on the Russian side, and to impose and increase the cost of doing so. Yeah? But that's basically what we've been trying to do, and where we count on doing this together.
Yes. So one more addition to what I said before, because it can resonate here in Malaysia and can be relevant for Malaysians here, about Russia's misinformation. A country which is so successful in portraying itself as a defender of Islam now. At the same time, during the Soviet times, they exterminated how many Muslims? Millions, probably.
Now they do the same.
Yes, now they do the same with Crimean Tatars. They basically Crimean Tatars who support Ukraine. They putting them to jail. They sending them to Russia. They give them terms in prison for 25, 30 years in prison. Whatever, 15, 25 years in prison. And this is lots of examples of putting Crimean Tatars, Muslims, Ukrainian Muslims into Russian jails. They don't care about them.